The salvage alert pierced through the static-filled cockpit of the Midnight Runner, a battle-scarred vessel that had seen better days. Ravik Korin, known throughout the frontier systems as Rave, wiped the grease from his weathered hands and squinted at the display. Another dead ship, another payday, or so he thought. The scanner readings showed something different this time, something that made his pulse quicken despite years of conditioning himself against hope. Outside the reinforced viewport, the Veil Nebula swirled in magnificent chaos, its purple and gold tendrils reaching across the void like the fingers of forgotten gods. This region of space had claimed countless ships over the centuries, its gravitational anomalies and radiation storms making it a graveyard for the brave and foolish alike. Yet here, in this cosmic cemetery, lay the promise of something extraordinary. Rave, you need to see this. Lyra Sen's voice crackled through the internal comm system. His navigator's tone carried an unusual edge, part excitement, part apprehension. In the 3 years they'd worked together, he'd rarely heard her sound so unsettled. Ravik made his way to the bridge, ducking under exposed conduits and stepping over jury-rigged power cables. The Midnight Runner was held together by determination and creative engineering more than anything else. As he entered the cramped command center, he found Lyra hunched over her console, her cybernetic implants glowing softly as they interfaced with the ship's systems. "What have we got?" Ravik asked, sliding into the captain's chair, a luxury he'd salvaged from a derelict cruise liner years ago. Lyra's fingers danced across holographic displays, pulling up enhanced sensor data. "The signal pattern matches nothing in our databases, but the energy signature." She paused, turning to face him. Half her skull was synthetic, a consequence of the research lab explosion that had nearly killed her 5 years prior. The incident had left her with fragmented memories and an AI-augmented brain that sometimes accessed information she couldn't consciously recall. "The energy signature is Celestian," she finished. The words hung in the recycled air between them. Celestian. The name alone was enough to send shivers down the spine of any spacer worth their salt. An ancient race that had vanished 500 years ago, leaving behind only ruins and legends. Their technology was so advanced that even their simplest tools defied modern understanding. "That's impossible," Ravik said, though his heart was already racing. Every Celestian artifact was catalogued and locked away after the Great Isolation War. The Federation made sure of that. "Unless," Lyra said slowly, "this one was never found." Ravik leaned forward, studying the readings more carefully. The signal was weak but consistent, broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't exist according to modern physics. It was coming from deeper within the nebula, past the worst of the gravitational shears. "How long until Orhan arrives?" Ravik asked. 6 hours, assuming he doesn't get cold feet," Lyra replied. "You sure we can trust him? Ex-archaeologists turned information brokers aren't exactly known for their reliability." Ravik smiled grimly. "Orhan Trev owes me 3 life debts and a cargo hold full of Altarian crystals. He'll show." The truth was more complicated, as it always was in Ravik's line of work. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But Orhan had something he needed, a fragment of an ancient star chart that supposedly led to the greatest prize in the galaxy, the Celestian Ark. According to legend, the Ark wasn't just a ship but a repository of the Celestians' collective knowledge and consciousness. Some said it held the secret to their disappearance. Others claimed it contained weapons that could reshape entire star systems. Most dismissed it as myth, a bedtime story for spacers and dreamers. But Ravik had learned long ago that myths often had kernels of truth buried within them. And if there was even a chance the Ark was real, it could be his ticket to redemption, or at least to a retirement that didn't involve constantly looking over his shoulder. He stood and moved to the viewport, watching the nebula's deadly beauty. "Run a full diagnostic on our shields and engines. If we're going deeper into the Veil, I want everything running at peak efficiency." "Already on it," Lyra said. "But Rave," If this really is Celestian, we might be getting in over our heads. The last team that found a major Celestian site ended up as quantum dust. I know, Ravik interrupted. But they were Federation scientists, not survivors like us. We know how to handle dangerous tech. Lyra's expression remained skeptical, but she returned to her work. As Ravik watched her, he reflected on how far they'd both fallen, or risen, depending on one's perspective. He'd once been a decorated Federation pilot, flying escort for diplomatic missions and colony ships. That was before Kepler Station, before he'd made the choice that branded him a traitor in the eyes of the law. The memory still burned, watching the refugee transport limping toward the station, knowing it carried war criminals but also hundreds of innocent civilians. The Federation's orders had been clear: disable the ship and let the station's defense grid handle the rest. Instead, Ravik had guided them to safety, earning himself a court-martial and a lifetime ban from Federation space. Now he lived on the edges, salvaging what others had lost or abandoned. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was honest in its own way. Every relic he recovered, every piece of forbidden tech he sold to collectors and museums, was a small act of preservation against the Federation's policy of containment and control. "Incoming transmission," Lyra announced. "It's encrypted with Orhan's signature." "Put him through." The main display flickered to life, revealing Orhan Trev's weathered face. The former archaeologist looked like he'd aged a decade in the 2 years since Ravik had last seen him. His once pristine academic bearing had given way to the haunted look of a man who'd seen too much and could never unsee it. "Ravik," Orhan said without preamble, "I'm accelerating my approach. We have a problem." "When, don't we?" Ravik replied. "What's the situation?" "The Iridian marauders have gotten wind of our transaction. They're mobilizing their fleet." Ravik cursed under his breath. The Iridian marauders were the worst kind of pirates, well-organized, well-funded, and utterly ruthless. Led by a former military commander named Kesh Var, they specialized in acquiring dangerous technology and selling it to the highest bidder. "How much time do we have?" Ravik asked. "Maybe 12 hours before their scouts reach the nebula's edge. Less if they're pushing their engines. Then we move fast. Send me the star chart fragment now." Orhan hesitated. "Payment first. You know how this works." "The payment's no good if the marauders vaporize us all," Ravik countered. "Send the fragment. I'll transfer your credits as soon as we verify its authenticity." For a long moment, Orhan's image remained still. Then he sighed and nodded. "Transmitting now. And Ravik, whatever you find in there, be careful. The Celestians didn't just vanish. Something made them leave." The transmission ended, and seconds later, Lyra confirmed receipt of the data packet. She immediately began running decryption protocols while Ravik studied their options. The smart play would be to run, take what they had, and disappear into the vast emptiness between systems. But the smart play had never been his style. "Got it," Lyra announced. "The fragment's genuine. Pre-collapse encryption. Quantum-locked coordinates. Rave. This references something called the Song of Pulsars." "The what now?" "According to this, the Celestians encoded navigational data into the rhythm patterns of specific pulsars. It's brilliant. The patterns would remain stable for millions of years, unaffected by stellar drift or political boundaries." Ravik moved to her station, studying the complex mathematics scrolling across her screens. "Can you decode it?" "Already working on it. The ship's AI is cross-referencing pulsar catalogs with the harmonic patterns described in the fragment." She paused, her cybernetic eye flickering. "There, I've got a location. It's deep in the nebula, past the threshold line." The threshold line was the unofficial boundary beyond which no ship had ever returned. The gravitational distortions were so severe that even military-grade vessels couldn't maintain structural integrity. It was the perfect hiding place for something that didn't want to be found. "Plot a course," Ravik ordered. and start calculating shield harmonics that might help us survive the gravitational shears." "This is insane," Lyra muttered, but her hands were already moving across the controls. "You know that, right? We're betting our lives on a 500-year-old map and my ability to outsmart physics. Would you rather wait for the Marauders?" "Point taken." As the Midnight Runner's engines hummed to life, Ravik felt the familiar mixture of fear and exhilaration that came with every major discovery. This was what he lived for, the moment when the impossible became possible, when legends stepped out of mythology and into reality. The ship lurched forward, diving deeper into the Veil Nebula's chaotic embrace. Behind them, the relatively safe shipping lanes disappeared into the distance. Ahead lay the unknown, wrapped in stellar gases and gravitational mysteries. "Rave," Lyra said quietly. "My implants are picking up something odd, fragmented data from my old research lab's archives. Something about Celestian consciousness transfer experiments." Consciousness transfer. The ability to preserve and transfer sentient thought patterns between vessels. The lab was studying Celestian artifacts when... She trailed off, touching the synthetic portion of her skull. When everything went wrong, Ravik filed this information away. Every piece of the puzzle mattered when dealing with Celestian technology. The ancient race had achieved things that modern science could barely comprehend, and their artifacts had a disturbing tendency to be more than they appeared. Hours passed as they navigated deeper into the nebula. The Midnight Runner groaned and protested against the increasing gravitational stress, but Lyra's calculations held. She guided them through corridors of relative stability, threading between invisible forces that would have torn a less carefully piloted vessel apart. "Contact on long-range sensors," she announced. "It's Orhan. He's coming in hot with 3 Marauder scouts on his tail." "Can he make it to us?" "Not at his current trajectory. The scouts will intercept in 7 minutes. Ravik didn't hesitate. "Alter course to intercept. Prep the pulse cannon." "That'll put us in range of their weapons, too," Lyra warned. "Then we'd better shoot straight." The Midnight Runner banked hard, its reinforced hull screaming in protest. Through the viewport, Ravik could see Orhan's transport, a modified research vessel not built for combat, weaving desperately between energy blasts. The Marauder scouts moved with military precision, herding their prey toward a kill box. "Target lock on the lead scout," Lyra reported. "But if we fire, we'll light up every sensor in the sector." "Do it." The pulse cannon discharged with a thunderous roar that shook the entire ship. The blast caught the lead Marauder scout amidships, overloading its shields and sending it spinning into a nearby gravitational eddy. The wreckage was crushed to the size of a marble in seconds. The remaining scouts immediately changed tactics, splitting their attention between Orhan and this new threat. Energy blasts sizzled past the Midnight Runner's hull as Ravik threw the ship into a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible in normal space. Here, in the nebula's twisted physics, momentum and inertia followed different rules. "Orhan's clear," Lyra announced. "He's heading for our docking bay." "Good. Now let's deal with our friends." The dance continued for several more minutes, the Midnight Runner's superior knowledge of the local gravitational currents giving it an edge over the Marauder scouts. Finally, Ravik managed to lure one into a particularly nasty gravity well, watching with grim satisfaction as it was torn apart by tidal forces. The last scout, apparently deciding discretion was the better part of valor, broke off and retreated toward the nebula's edge. No doubt it would report their position to the main Marauder fleet, but they'd bought themselves some time. Orhan's ship limped into their docking bay, and minutes later, the archaeologist himself stumbled onto the bridge. He looked even worse in person, his clothes torn and singed from what must have been a harrowing escape. "Thank you," he gasped, collapsing into an empty chair. "I thought I was done for." "Save it," Ravik said coldly. "You led them right to us. That wasn't part of our deal." "I didn't have a choice. They intercepted my communications, traced the star chart fragment." They know about the Ark. Ravik. They know what we're looking for. How much do they know? Orhan's expression was grim. Everything I did. Maybe more. Keshvar has resources we can't imagine. Private armies, stolen military tech, connections throughout the black market. If the Ark is real, he'll stop at nothing to claim it. Then we'd better find it first. Ravik decided. Lyra, how much further? Based on the pulsar patterns, we're about 6 hours out, but the gravitational distortions are getting worse. I'm not sure the ship can take much more. She'll hold, Ravik said with more confidence than he felt. She always does, as if to challenge his words. The Midnight Runner shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles as the ship's automated systems struggled to compensate for the increasing stress. They were entering truly uncharted territory now, beyond even the wildest tales of nebula runners and desperate explorers. I'm detecting structured formations ahead, Lyra reported, her voice tight with concentration. Artificial constructs integrated into the asteroid field, definitely Celestian design. Through the viewport, they could see it, a vast field of asteroids that moved with unnatural precision, their orbits forming complex patterns that defied conventional physics. Interspersed among them were structures that seemed to grow from the rock itself, organic-looking forms that pulsed with faint energy. Celestian outposts, Orhan breathed, his academic instincts overcoming his fear. Intact after all these centuries. This is unprecedented. Stay focused, Ravik warned. Intact Celestian tech tends to have intact Celestian defenses. As if on cue, several of the structures began to glow more brightly. Energy beams lanced out, but instead of targeting the ship, they seemed to be scanning it, probing its systems with delicate precision. They're interfacing with our computers, Lyra reported. I can't block them. The technology is too advanced. Let them look, Ravik decided. We're not here to steal or destroy. Maybe they'll recognize that. The scanning continued for several tense minutes. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The structures dimmed, and a path opened through the asteroid field, a clear corridor leading deeper into the formation. An invitation? Orhan suggested. Or a trap, Lyra countered. Only one way to find out, Ravik said. Take us in, nice and slow. The Midnight Runner crept forward, passing between asteroids that could have crushed it without effort. As they moved deeper, more structures became visible. Vast holes carved into solid rock, crystalline formations that hummed with barely contained power. And everywhere the distinctive flowing architecture that marked Celestian construction. Look at the walls, Orhan whispered. Those are data walls, hieroglyphic storage matrices. Each symbol contains terabytes of compressed information. Can you read them? Ravik asked. Some. My doctoral thesis was on Celestian linguistics. Give me a few minutes. While Orhan worked, Lyra continued to monitor their surroundings. I'm picking up a massive energy signature ahead. If the readings are correct, it's alive? Alive how? Biological patterns integrated with technological systems, like nothing I've ever seen. Orhan looked up from his translation work, his face pale. The walls, they're talking about consciousness preservation. The Celestians found a way to encode sentient thought into quantum matrices. They called it the Eternal Archive. The Ark, Ravik breathed. More than that, Orhan continued. According to this, the Ark was their solution to mortality. They could transfer their consciousness into the ship, becoming one with it. But there were those who opposed it, who felt it was an abomination. The texts speak of a great philosophical divide. What happened to them? Lyra asked. The texts don't say. They just... Stop. A chill ran down Ravik's spine. The Celestians had been the most advanced race in known galactic history. If something had been powerful enough to make them disappear, Movement on sensors, Lyra announced. We've got company. 5 Marauder heavy cruisers just entered the nebula. They're following our trajectory. How long until they reach us? At their current speed? Maybe 2 hours. Less if they're willing to risk their ships in the gravity wells. Then we don't have time for caution, Ravik decided. Find the Ark. They pushed deeper into the asteroid field, following energy readings that grew stronger with each passing moment. The Celestian structures became more elaborate, more alive. Some seemed to react to their presence, walls shifting and reconfiguring as they passed. Then they saw it. The Celestian Ark hung in space like a frozen dream, its hull a seamless blend of organic curves and crystalline precision. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of a Federation battleship, yet it moved with a grace that defied its bulk. Energy coursed along its surface in patterns that resembled neural pathways, and at its heart, visible through translucent sections of the hull, pulsed a core of pure light. By the stars, Orhan whispered. It's beautiful. It's also active, Lyra warned. I'm reading massive power signatures. That ship is very much alive. Open a channel, Ravik ordered. All frequencies. You want to talk to it? If it's truly sentient, communication is our best option. Lyra complied, and Ravik leaned forward. Celestian vessel. This is Captain Ravik Korin of the Midnight Runner. We mean no harm. We seek knowledge and understanding. Please respond. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Ark's energy patterns shifted, and a voice filled the bridge, not through the comm system, but directly into their minds. You bear the mark of curiosity, not conquest, the voice said. Ancient beyond measure, yet strangely warm. It has been so long since any sought us with pure intent. You may approach. A docking port materialized on the Ark's hull, perfectly sized for the Midnight Runner. Ravik exchanged glances with his crew, seeing his own mixture of awe and apprehension reflected in their faces. The Marauders, Lyra began. We'll have to catch us first. Ravik finished. Take us in. The docking was smooth, assisted by forces they couldn't begin to understand. As the airlocks sealed, Ravik found himself standing before an entrance to another world, a doorway to secrets 5 centuries old. I should go alone, he said. Like hell, Lyra replied. We're in this together. She's right, Orhan added. Besides, you'll need me to translate anything we find. Ravik nodded, grateful despite himself. Together, they stepped through the airlock and into the Celestian Ark. The corridors beyond were a marvel of bioengineering. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing with a gentle rhythm that matched their heartbeats. Bioluminescent panels provided soft light, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and something floral. But what struck them most was the sense of presence, the feeling that the ship itself was watching, evaluating, deciding. They followed the main corridor, which seemed to guide them with subtle shifts in lighting and air current. Along the way, they passed chambers filled with wonders, gardens where impossible plants grew in perfect symmetry, pools of liquid that reflected not their faces but their thoughts, and everywhere the sense of vast intelligence at rest. The botanical specimens, Orhan murmured. They're from worlds across the galaxy, a genetic ark as well as a consciousness archive. Finally, they reached what could only be the central nexus. The chamber was vast, its domed ceiling displaying a real-time map of the galaxy marked with millions of points of light. At the center stood a pillar of pure energy, within which shapes and patterns danced in constant motion. The consciousness matrix, Lyra breathed. It's beautiful. As they approached, the voice returned, stronger now. Welcome, Seekers. I am what remains of the Celestian Collective, thousands of minds united in singular purpose. You stand at the threshold of transcendence. We seek understanding, Ravik said. What happened to your people? Why did you disappear? Images flooded their minds, the rise of Celestian civilization, their mastery of science and art, the development of consciousness transfer technology, but also the debates, the factions, the growing divide between those who sought immortality through the archive and those who believed death was a necessary part of existence. We achieved what we sought, the consciousness explained. Eternal life, infinite knowledge. But in doing so, we lost something essential. Growth comes from change, from the passage of generations. In our immortality, we became static. Those who refused the archive departed for unknown space. Those who accepted it became what you see. And now? Ravik asked. Now we wait. We preserve. And, occasionally, we test those who find us. You, Ravik Korin, carry the weight of choices made in desperation. You seek redemption through discovery. But tell me, if offered the power to reshape the galaxy, to correct every injustice and right every wrong, would you take it? Before Ravik could answer, alarms shrieked through the Midnight Runner's comm system. Lyra's fingers flew over her portable interface. The Marauders are here. They're surrounding the Ark. As if in response, the Ark's voice took on a new urgency. The test comes sooner than anticipated. Those who approach bear the mark of conquest, of domination. They would use our knowledge to subjugate and control. Can you defend yourself? Ravik asked. We can, but at great cost. To unleash our full power would be to risk repeating our own mistakes, to become judges and executioners rather than preservers. The choice, Ravik Korin, is yours. We offer you the command codes to our defensive systems. Use them wisely. A stream of information flowed into Ravik's mind, complex equations and command structures that his brain could barely comprehend. But with it came understanding. The Ark's weapons could indeed destroy the Marauder fleet, but they were weapons of such power that their use would fundamentally change the balance of power in the galaxy. Incoming transmission, Lyra reported. It's Keshvar. Put him through. The Marauder commander's scarred face appeared on Lyra's portable display. He was exactly what Ravik had expected. Cold eyes, military bearing, and an aura of barely controlled violence. Captain Korin, Keshvar said, I'll make this simple. Surrender the Ark, and I'll let you and your crew leave alive. Refuse, and I'll take it anyway, after I've blown your pathetic ship to atoms. Counteroffer, Ravik replied. You leave now, and I don't turn you into a cautionary tale about why you shouldn't threaten things you don't understand. Keshvar laughed. Brave words for a man outnumbered 5-1. You have 60 seconds to comply. The transmission ended, and Ravik found himself at the crossroads he'd always known would come. Throughout his career, he'd walked the line between preservation and profit, between doing what was right and doing what was necessary. Now, with the power of an ancient civilization at his fingertips, that line had never been clearer or more difficult to navigate. Rave, Lyra said quietly. Whatever you're going to do. I know. He turned to the consciousness matrix. There's another option, isn't there? Something between destruction and surrender. Perhaps, the Ark replied, but it would require trust and sacrifice. I'm listening. As the seconds ticked down, the Ark revealed its proposal. The defensive systems could be activated in a non-lethal configuration, creating a stasis field that would trap the Marauder ships without destroying them. But maintaining such a field would require the Ark to remain in the nebula, hidden once more from the galaxy at large. Furthermore, the consciousness continued. The field would need an anchor, a living mind to guide and maintain it. One of you would need to remain, to join with us in the archive. I'll do it, Orhan said immediately. This is what I've been searching for my entire life. The chance to preserve knowledge, to be part of something greater. Orhan, no, Lyra protested. "You don't know what you're agreeing to." "Don't I?" The archaeologist's eyes were bright with purpose. "I've spent years running from the mistakes of my past, selling information to the highest bidder. This is my chance to do something meaningful." "Time's up," Lyra announced. "The marauders are charging weapons." Ravik made his choice. "Do it. Activate the stasis field." Orhan stepped toward the consciousness matrix, his form beginning to blur as the archive reached out to embrace him. "Tell my story," he said. "Make sure they know that in the end, I chose to preserve rather than profit." The transformation was both beautiful and terrible. Orhan's physical form dissolved into pure energy, merging with the swirling patterns within the matrix. For a moment, Ravik could feel his friend's consciousness expanding, touching the vast network of Celestian minds within the archive. Then the Ark's defensive systems activated. A wave of golden energy expanded from the ship, washing over the marauder fleet. Their vessels froze in place, caught between heartbeats, their crews trapped in temporal stasis that would hold them safely until someone chose to release them. "It's done," the Ark said. And now Ravik could hear Orhan's voice within the collective. "The immediate threat is contained, but you must leave now. Take with you what you've learned, but know that the Ark must remain hidden. The galaxy is not ready for what we represent." "What about the marauders?" Lyra asked. "They will be released in time. Their memories altered to forget this place. They will remember only a catastrophic nebula storm that forced them to retreat. It is the kindest solution." Ravik nodded, understanding the wisdom in it. "And will you be all right?" "We are complete," Orhan's voice replied. "For the first time in centuries, the archive has purpose again. We will guard this place, preserve its knowledge, and perhaps one day, when the galaxy is ready, we will share what we've learned." They made their way back to the Midnight Runner in contemplative silence. As the docking clamps released and they pulled away from the Ark, Ravik took one last look at the magnificent vessel. It was already beginning to fade, its advanced stealth systems hiding it once more from those who would misuse its power. "Plot a course out of the nebula," he ordered. "Slow and steady, we've pushed our luck enough for one day." As they navigated back through the treacherous gravitational currents, Lyra worked to encrypt and secure the data they'd gathered. Not the weapon specifications or the consciousness transfer technology. Those secrets would remain with the Ark. But the philosophical writings, the botanical data, the star charts showing the possible destinations of those Celestians who had chosen mortality over the archive. These they would preserve and share carefully. "You know the Federation will want to debrief us," Lyra said. "The Marauders' disappearance won't go unnoticed." "Let them ask," Ravik replied. "We'll tell them the truth, that we encountered a gravitational anomaly that nearly destroyed us all. The Marauders pushed too hard and got caught in it. We barely escaped ourselves." "And the Ark?" "What Ark? We found some Celestian ruins, took some scans of philosophical texts. Nothing the Federation would consider dangerous." Lyra smiled. "You're getting better at this hero thing." "I'm no hero, just a salvager who knows that some things are too valuable to sell." They emerged from the Veil Nebula 3 days later, battered but intact. True to the Ark's word, the Marauder fleet was nowhere to be found. Official reports would later state that they had been caught in an unprecedented nebula storm, forcing them to retreat with significant damage and gaps in their logs. Ravik deposited the safe portions of their findings with the Independent Archaeological Institute, ensuring the knowledge would be preserved and studied without falling into the wrong hands. The dangerous secrets, the true nature of the Ark, its location, and the power it contained, he kept locked in his own mind and Lyra's encrypted files. Months passed. The Midnight Runner continued its work, salvaging lost treasures and forgotten knowledge from the edges of civilized space. But now their mission had a different focus. Instead of simply profiting from their finds, they sought to preserve and protect, to ensure that the mistakes of the past weren't repeated. One evening, as they drifted in the calm space between systems, Lyra found Ravik in his quarters, writing in an old-fashioned journal. "Still working on your memoirs?" she asked. "Something like that." He showed her the page. "I want there to be a record, something beyond the official reports and sanitized histories." She read his latest entry. "Power without wisdom destroys civilizations. True legacy lies in restraint and responsibility. The Celestians learned this too late, achieving immortality at the cost of growth. But they left us a gift greater than their technology, the understanding that what we choose not to do defines us as much as what we do." "Heavy stuff," Lyra commented. "Think anyone will believe it?" "Doesn't matter if they believe it. What matters is that it's written, that somewhere out there, the truth exists." He closed the journal and looked out at the stars. Orhan made his choice. He's part of something eternal now, preserving knowledge for future generations. We make our choice every day, what to reveal, what to protect, how to balance discovery with responsibility. "Any regrets?" Lyra asked. Ravik considered the question. His path had taken him from Federation pilot to outlaw, to something in between, a guardian of sorts, protecting the galaxy from its own ambitions. He thought of the Ark, hidden once more in the Veil Nebula, waiting for the day when humanity and its allies would be wise enough to use its knowledge without being consumed by it. "No," he said finally. "No regrets. We did what needed to be done. So what now? Back to regular salvage runs? For now. But keep your ears open for anything unusual. The Celestians weren't the only ancient race to leave mysteries behind. Someone needs to find them before the wrong people do." Lyra grinned. "Business as usual, then, with a side of saving the galaxy." Something like that. As the Midnight Runner engaged its jump drive, heading toward their next adventure, Ravik allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had faced the ultimate temptation, power beyond imagination, and chosen wisdom instead. In a galaxy full of those who would take whatever they could grasp, they had learned the value of letting go. Somewhere in the Veil Nebula, the Celestian Ark waited, patient and eternal, within its consciousness matrix. Orhan Trev continued his work, cataloging and preserving knowledge alongside minds that had transcended physical form. They were the guardians now, ensuring that when the galaxy was ready, the wisdom of the Celestians would light the way forward. But that was a story for another generation. For now, Ravik, Rave, Korin, and his crew had salvage to find, mysteries to uncover, and a galaxy to protect from itself. The work never ended. But then again, neither did the wonder. As stars streaked past the viewport and the jump drive hummed with barely contained energy, Ravik smiled. He'd found his redemption not in some grand gesture or heroic sacrifice, but in the simple act of choosing wisdom over power, preservation over profit. It wasn't the ending he'd imagined for himself all those years ago, flying escort for the Federation, but it was the right one. The Midnight Runner disappeared into jump space, leaving behind only the faintest trace of its passage. Somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars, new mysteries waited to be discovered. And when they were found, Ravik Korin would be there to ensure they were handled with the care they deserved. After all, someone had to keep the balance. Someone had to remember that true legacy lay not in what you took, but in what you chose to leave behind. And in a galaxy still recovering from the wounds of war and mistrust, that might just be the most important job of all. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of those who traveled between them. But for those who knew where to look, who understood the signs and portents hidden in cosmic phenomena, the galaxy was alive with possibility. Ancient secrets waited in forgotten corners, Powerful artifacts lay buried on dead worlds, and somewhere out there, other civilizations faced the same choice the Celestians had: transcendence or growth, immortality or life. Ravik had made his choice. He would continue to walk the line between discovery and discretion, ensuring that the mistakes of the past didn't become the catastrophes of the future. It wasn't glamorous work, and it certainly wasn't profitable in the traditional sense, but it was necessary. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between jumps, when the ship hummed with contentment and the crew worked in comfortable harmony, he could feel Orhan's presence through the quantum echoes of the archive. His friend had found his purpose, his redemption, his place in the greater tapestry of galactic civilization. They all had, in their own way. The Midnight Runner sailed on through the darkness, a small ship with a big responsibility, carrying within its databanks the wisdom to know when to reveal and when to conceal, when to act and when to refrain. In a galaxy full of those who sought power at any cost, they had become something rarer and more valuable. Guardians of wisdom, protectors of perspective, champions of the long view. And as Ravik settled in for another jump, another adventure, another chance to make a difference, he knew that this was exactly where he belonged. Not in the bright centers of Federation power, not in the shadowy depths of Outlaw space, but in the gray areas between, where difficult choices were made and the future was shaped one decision at a time. The jump drive engaged, reality twisted, and the Midnight Runner leaped across the cosmos toward its next destination. Behind them, the Veil Nebula kept its secrets. The Celestian Ark maintained its vigil, and the galaxy spun on, unaware of how close it had come to repeating ancient mistakes. But that was the nature of true heroism. Ravik reflected, the greatest victories were often the ones nobody knew about. The disasters prevented rather than the battles won. And if that meant living on the edges, branded an outlaw by those who didn't understand, then so be it. He had found his purpose, his redemption, his place in the vast cosmic story. And that, in the end, was worth more than all the lost treasures and forbidden technologies in the galaxy. The stars beckoned, mysteries called, and the Midnight Runner answered, carrying its crew toward whatever adventure awaited them next. Because in a galaxy full of wonders and dangers, someone had to keep watch. Someone had to remember that with great power came the even greater responsibility of knowing when not to use it. And Ravik Rave Korin, former Federation pilot, current outlaw, and eternal seeker of balance, was exactly the right person for the job.